Nice.
Everyone, welcome back to AI Insights. I'm your host, Fleur Prince, and I'm here today with Matthew, who is an AI
Hi.
strategist. Welcome, Matthew.
Yeah, hey, welcome. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, it's so awesome. Yeah, because you're now based in the US, right?
Correct. I am physically located in the Washington, D.C. metro area.
So yeah, we're going to learn more about Matthew's journey as an AI leader, about his vast experience, and how he became Matthew Kilbane, the AI strategist.
The guy sitting in front of you on this podcast, right? Sure. So I refer to my career as a beautiful adventure simply because it has been. It's been lovely. I'm very, very happy with how things have turned out and how things are going. So I started out, actually as a career when I was 19 years old as an infantryman in the United States Army in active duty. I got off active duty, went to school, and I was still a part of the National Guard, which is if you're not an American, that's, a 1 weekend a month, 2 week a year commitment. And then lived life. I gained a skill set as a logistician when I transitioned from an infantry non-commissioned officer to a ordnance commissioned officer with the U.S. military. And then I finished out my career as the logistician for a military police battalion, which was a wonderful experience. And so again, 20 years total, beautiful adventure. From there, because I had the skills as a logistician, I went to work in private enterprise. I was a contractor for Delta Airlines. And then that's when I moved into the U.S. federal government, working for FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. And again, that was in the field of logistics, right? And as a logistician, all you do is algebra. That's all it is. Algebra, geometry, trig, calc. And I mean, because you're moving things. You have space, time, velocity, all that.
Yeah, a lot of math.
So, oh yes, oh absolutely, very math intensive. And so that's actually kind of a natural progression into information technology, because as a logistician, mathematics, processes, systems, mathematics, processes, systems in
Natural
IT. So it was a
overflow.
very easy, it very much so. And so I started my career, my third one, it would be in information technology with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and then moving on to DHS headquarters, DHS Office of the Inspector General, and then out back into the private sector where I find myself today. So it's been quite a journey and a lovely one at that. And I'm looking forward to what else life has in store.
Yeah, I can definitely understand. I mean, I looked at your LinkedIn profile. I mean, the first time I contacted you to be a judge at Tech Fest, which you organized here in The Hague.
Yeah.
And I was like, looking, oh my God, this is such an impressive person. And then you also decided
Well,
to fly over. I was like, oh my God, Matthew's coming.
yes, of course. Well, okay. So look, again, look, if you invite me to Europe and I can get to Europe, I'm going to Europe. Like, I mean, that's just going to happen, right? I mean, especially at The Hague. And again, yeah, thank you so much for accepting me there. It's a wonderful, wonderful program you folks have, especially the Hague Tech Center. That incubator is lovely. And really looking forward to if there's any other opportunities to collaborating, because you have a very healthy environment there, and it's one that is ripe for a lot of innovation. So you should be very excited about what you're building, because I see it, and bravo. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with it.
Yeah. And again, any other instances we have for collaboration, my phone cone is open.
Yeah, I have your phone number now, so awesome. By the way, looking also at your diverse experience,
Sure. Yeah.
like what pivotal moments or challenges actually steered you towards like your current focus in AI?
Sure. It would be the role that I had right as I got out of the United States government. I was working for a company called AmerisourceBergen at the time. They're now rebranded as Syncora, and they were going through a corporate merger, right? So AmerisourceBergen, which is a U.S. company, bought, I think, Alliance or Allied Health or something like that in the EU. And so they were merging the companies. And then I was brought on as the senior manager of, IT governance and endpoint governance and analytics, whatever the job title was, bridging the Atlantic, with personnel and building an international team and, establishing the standards, understanding the various legal frameworks, right? Because how we handle data in America is not how you handle data in the European Union, nor is it, in Asia Pacific, because, we had, because it's a global company, right? So you're talking about South America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, APAC, all over North America. So it's a very huge footprint, very large. And again, and as a part of that, as an ancillary duty, right, to that job, I found myself within the AmerisourceBergen Generative AI Center of Excellence and exposed to that information. And that was the light bulb. That was like, oh my God, like this is it. This is it. I have so many, years and years of complex business problems, right, that I have either had to architect solutions for, process redesigns, or just, the basic, outlining the business system architecture to, in order to get things done, right? And especially in logistics, because it's all about system analysis. A lot of parallels, with my skills in the Army with counterinsurgency, attack the network, like stuff like that. Asymmetric warfare principles also are systems thinking, except applied to the battlefield. So when I got into the Generative AI Center of Excellence there with that company, it was like, oh my God, duck right to water. So lovely experience for me. And then, I was there for a few more months, and then, layoffs happened. It was, tech layoffs. So what is it, 23, I believe, if everyone remembers those, all the, get tech workers during COVID, and then, after COVID. So that was fun. Not really. And yeah, so, after I found myself on my own, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do this because this is just my career path now because I fell in love with it. And then away we go. So I started my own company, a consulting company where I work with veteran-owned small businesses because I'm a U.S. Army veteran myself. And from there, that led me into my other ventures when I realized the importance of AI and its impact on our systems, on our organizations, our enterprises, and our society, to lead me down the other paths that I've been down, and yeah, and right now I'm sitting here, doing a podcast with a person across the Atlantic, and it's a really cool journey. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, when I got into AI, it just changed so much so quickly. Especially like as a young person, I noticed that a lot of people, like it's easier to catch up, but I noticed people like from older generations, when you talk about the newest AI tools, they are trying to catch up as well. And I'm like, it's not that hard. But, it's interesting to explain these kind of things to them as well, how it's slowly going to implement into the infrastructure and why it's important to be AI literate.
Yeah. And well, also, it's not just the fact that it's intergenerational. AI implementation is across market sectors. And I mean every single one of them, right? I mean, every domain is going to be impacted by artificial intelligence in some way. And I know when I say artificial intelligence, you in the audience, you're thinking LLMs, ChatGPT, but it's also so much more, right? I mean, you're talking about machine learning, robotic process automation, computer vision, and then, it just blows up from there, into entirely new fields, that we're discovering things daily. So it's a wonderful time to be riding the AI wave. It truly is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see also now a rise in quantum as well, thanks to AI making better calculations, or at least faster calculations than a human can.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny you mentioned that. So plug in myself, there was a blog post I did about a week ago that actually touched on that. It's how we as a society are essentially approaching a point through artificial intelligence enablement of what I call like universal technological recursion, right? Because when you take three main domains of really data-driven ecosystems at the top, nanotechnology and biotechnology, when you combine those three, it creates a feedback loop with which they all accelerate and build off of each other. And I mean, it's a really, really exciting time and scary time, for the future of humanity when you really sit back and look at the enterprise and, enterprise level effects of AI on our society. So there's a lot to be hopeful for and also a lot to be very cautious of.
Yeah, no, I agree. I always call it like a second, how do you call it? Fourth industrial revolution actually coming in.
Yeah, definitely.
Where you just see the entire workforce changing because of an invention that looked very simple, but is actually much more impactful than people first thought it would be.
Well, yeah. So I agree with that. And I think what makes this transition interesting, right? Because look, we're humans. Okay. I mean, we have gone through technological transitions before, right? Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, Industrial Age, Steam, all that. And now we're in the information age, transitioning into the age of AI. This is what we're really doing as we take via computer algorithm and we automate and we eliminate much of the systemic noise that we have had to build as people in order to literally support the foundation of our society. It's truly an amazing tool.
By the way, you described your current role and how AI factors into it day by day.
So AI is my day. No, it is. It is. It's literally what I do. So, well, let's walk you around my resume, right? Like what am I really doing with my day? So, I wake up in the morning and I have, usually I'm watching some type of lecture or hitting up, one of the AI news sites to see what happened over the evening. Because literally technology and the benchmarks are changing by the day in this field. That's the pace of the advancement. And then after that, I do a regular 9 to 5 where I work in the AI field. And so I'm doing AI there for like enterprise level implementations. And then after that, and when I'm done with work, well, guess what? I've got my own company to where I help better known small businesses get off the ground, right? By leveraging technological enablers that they wouldn't otherwise have access to, setting up their environments, giving the AI, stuff like that, stuff to help out. And then I'm also, involved, in artificial intelligence policy, right? And regulation. So, as an additional duty in my life, I am the, what is my titles? I am the chairman on the subcommittee of governance and technology for a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. And I'm also the director of legislation for the Maryland Veterans Chamber of Commerce, where we try to get artificial intelligence and other veteran-centric legislation into state law for the state of Maryland to establish a legal framework with the United States of America, with which to tackle many of the societal challenges that AI is going to bring forward in the future, very near future.
Okay. Oh, that's definitely then something for our audience also to keep an eye out on. So it's like an
Yeah,
interesting
yeah, definitely.
thing to watch out
Yeah,
for.
yeah, it's an interesting development, right? It's
Yeah,
it's a
that's a good
base
word.
of a career. It's literally a base of a career because, and again, it all feeds into each other because it's all AI and tech centric, right? So no matter what domain in my life that I move through, like I am in the field of AI and it is my world 24/7 and it has been for several years, and I've got to really dig deep into many aspects, both policy, technical, and meet with subject matter experts, again, all over the world to really flesh out, what I see as responsible AI implementation and the frameworks that we need as a society to establish the guardrails against a lot of the disruptions that, again, I said will occur. And then, it's just I've taken it upon myself to go and try and have some of those guardrails installed.
Yeah, especially when it comes to public safety as well. I completely get it. But also,
Absolutely.
would you say from your perspective, like what are the most exciting or disruptive trends in AI actually, and how are you seeing these trends reshape the industry?
Okay, so the most exciting trend that I would say right now for me personally is, quite frankly, the prospect of artificial general intelligence. That is synthetic life, man becoming God. We will create something. On the day that, we first plug in, turn on, birth, whatever adverb, whatever verb you would like to use, a general artificial intelligence instance, and it achieves consciousness and it can do the things, mentally that we can do. It can, it can think, it can feel, it can live. For the first time in human history, we're going to have an answer to the question, are we alone? And that answer is going to be no. All right. And so just sit with that for a minute, right? When we have AGI, when we hit that, humanity will, for the first time ever, not be alone in the universe. And we will be the gods. We will be the creators. So, okay. So if that's the proposition, then also the converse of that is artificial general intelligence is also one of the most challenging and one of the most pressing issues of our time. Because what do we want really to pass on, to this AGI? Because again, even with the LLMs, right, we still don't fundamentally understand the mathematical calculations, right, within the LLMs that generate the results they do. We don't get it, right?
Yeah, we don't understand
It's
how it
not
happens
some
exactly.
exactly, and we can't do that. Like the global brain power of humanity put together, focused on these problems, still cannot determine that. Doesn't mean we're not going to. It just means we haven't yet. That's the process of science. But what if we never do? Right? Like, I mean, what are we really passing on? Do we want to, I mean, if we're training off human data, right? If that's what we're training on and the data of the internet, is forming the foundation of what is to be, then do we really want to use the racist stuff or the sexist stuff or the bigoted stuff that's out on the internet? Do we really want to incorporate that into the next step in our evolution? That's to me, that's an easy conversation. The conversation is a no.
Yeah, exactly. We want them to be
But
better than us.
exactly, right? You would want them to be better and to be born, for, again, lack of a better verb, without our biases, without our stereotypes, without our deficiencies. So that way we would then have, essentially our vehicle towards our next evolutionary step at that point, because once again, you talk about the universal technological recursion, when you combine the nanotech and you combine the biotech, well, and then you combine the data-driven ecosystems, and then you layer artificial general intelligence on top of that. I mean, you have a being that, for all intents and purposes, is physically immortal.
Yeah,
At that
they
point.
don't need a human body to function. They just need electricity
No,
and a
exactly.
GPU, and they're fine.
Yep. And as soon as the first AGI gets a hold of the first nanobot at the molecular level, done. Because you turn the nanobot into a von Neumann machine, create a bit of gray goo, and then you just build and construct whatever you want, including the AGI's own body. Right. And so it's getting to the point where, the stuff that you used to read about, in science fiction and movies is going to be reality to a very certain, to a very real extent, and what happens to society at that point, right? Like what happens when, again, we have created this thinking, feeling, cognating a being and we force it to do work. Can we? Is that slavery? Doesn't it have rights?
Exactly. How do you,
Yeah.
does it,
Yeah, exactly.
does it
And
deserve
so
rights?
and so you
That's very also
see, yeah,
questionable.
and so you see, I'm sorry, yes, ma'am, but you see right there, without even getting into the ramifications of job loss, without even getting into the sector-wide disruptions, right, from the re-architecting of business processes, you're already talking about massive shifts in society because these are conversations that are going to have to occur. Like we are going to have to work out how to coexist with a being that is rapidly evolving past our ability to understand, right? Because once you hit AGI, then you have recursion. And once you have, and for you out there in the audience, recursion is the ability to build and get better and better and better, right? It's that evolutionary step, that self-erecting crane. Where does it go from there? And then we start talking to the real far-fetched stuff like ASI, artificial superintelligence. And I mean, at that point, is humanity even in the conversation anymore?
I think it would also, I always think if you create indeed an intelligent, I would also say an intelligence like this that takes over the job that we don't want to do as well. Because that's also been a question, like, do we still need to earn money if at a certain point, like, remedial tasks can be done by robots?
Well, no, and I don't think we do. I mean, we've already, who is it? Gene Roddenberry's already envisioned this future for us, and that's Star Trek. And I see, so when I look at AI and I look at AGI, like, that's what I envision. I envision Star Trek. I envision the post-scarcity world. Right? Like we don't have, the nanomachines powered by the AI are cleaning up the oceans and they're getting rid of the microplastics, right? The nanobots in our blood are cleaning our blood of the toxins and whatever microplastics have gotten into our system, right? Like that's what I envision. I envision direct inject drugs, bespoke, genetically engineered, patient-specific drugs targeting cancer cells, thereby creating the average lifespan of 200 to 300 years. Right? Like that's what I want. That's what I want for humanity. I mean, because why? Like, I mean, are we really meant and put on this earth to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for decades? I mean, our entire social structure as it stands now is architected around a 1926 automobile assembly line. Thank you, Henry Ford. It was revolutionary for its period, but we don't live life like that anymore, nor do we need to. It's just habit, and we're creatures of habit. And through AI, we can break that. And it really depends. And like I said, those guardrails, like that path forward is there for us as a species. It's right there, and the only people that are standing in the way are either quite frankly, the oligarchs who want to control everything and, be kings of their own little kingdoms. And you see it playing out right now on that international political level. But I mean, the future is very, very bright if we all agree that it's going to be bright. But I think the future isn't as bright if we don't, again, start instituting the ethical and legal responsible AI guardrails, right, that are really going to shape the way this entire future can play out, So yeah, there's a lot ahead. There's a long road ahead.
Yeah, no, indeed, but that's always with an industrial revolution, as I say.
Yeah.
We have to make the rules as we go, but also make sure that it's done in a way that benefits humanity as a whole.
Completely agree. Yes, there's no reason, especially with the potential of artificial intelligence, to alleviate so much of the process and the task level burdens that we do on a daily basis that, why are we not working 4 hours a day, 3 days a week? I have stuff I would like to go do.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
There's life out there that I would love to be living right now, instead of, again, living life in accordance with a 1926 automobile assembly line.
It was nice for a while, but we have other things
Yeah,
to do.
it served its purpose, but as society and technology advanced, our way of life didn't, and that's globally.
Yeah, no, and that's what we need to start addressing now. I know, I totally agree with it. I also, because that's always a complaint when you come to Gen Z, for example, where they said like, we're lazy, we're not doing anything. And I'm like, no, we just have a different way of working because we understand that we also want to do our own stuff. Like besides having a job, we also have our own little projects or things that we're passionate about that we also want to put time into.
Exactly. You mean you're a human with interest outside of a hierarchical structure meant to exploit you? Really? Like of course, of course. And so, and all the people saying this, they're just, they either are afraid of change, right, due to fear, or they're afraid of the pain of change, right, because change requires effort, right, and effort requires exertion, and exertion is uncomfortable. Or they're already at the top of the heap and they just want to stay at the top of the hill, right? It's already working out for them.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to move down.
So yeah,
You have
why
to move,
change anything?
otherwise
If
life
life
is
is great for
boring.
me, yeah, life is great for me. I mean, when you make work your entire identity, I mean, of course you want to be at work and you don't understand why, and no one else wants to be at work 80 hours a week or something insane like that. So, no, I'm so proud of Gen Z, and I'm proud of the generation that'll come after Gen Z that concentrates more on themselves and the human experience, because that's what it's like. That's what life is about. I mean, who wants to get to the end of it and say, yay, the greatest thing I ever did with my time was contribute to shareholder value? That's just an empty existence.
Yeah,
That's a life lived for someone else and not yourself.
exactly. And when you're retirement age, you're like sick or your bones are not working, or at least not the way you want them
Yeah.
to.
So what are you retiring to? Like, what are you really retiring to? Like, don't you want to pull, but don't you want, instead of the last 10 years of your life, it can be the last 40 years of your life? I mean, why not? Let's push the buttons and pull the levers and write the rules so we can make that happen.
Exactly. See how
You
that
know?
goes.
Yeah, let's try that one. Let's try the thing where everyone has health care and no one is sick and diseases are eradicated. Like, let's do that.
Yeah, that one
You
seems much
know?
easier.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't it seem like really, really like a better idea for everyone? So yeah, that's the future I want. And again, that's Star Trek, right? That is the post-scarcity, that is the technologically enabled societal progress based on, oh, wait a minute, diversity, equity, inclusion, and fairness. There we go, right? Because as we know, if you want to truly get to the root cause and solve a problem, you need the most diverse team possible, right? Because diversity is just a slang for mental perspective on an issue. You know what I mean?
No, I
So,
definitely agree. Mm, I'm
like,
thinking now
well, with
also my next question because we already
yeah,
covered ethics and responsibility. So I'm thinking, oh, this might be a good question. So beyond business, how do you envision AI impacting actually society in the long run, besides AGI?
oof,
Because
yeah.
I'm really looking at particular areas like healthcare, education, because yeah, you already talked about AGI being a real disruptor.
Sure. So, okay, so let's talk by market sector. Education is going to be revolutionary if we allow it to be. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like let's go ahead and caveat all my answers if we allow it to be. Imagine your own personal tutor, the same tutor your entire life that grows with you and that pushes you, right? That automatically teaches you in the most efficient way possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Based on your bio and neural feedback. I mean, that is literally the equivalent of every single child on the planet having their own Socrates to their Plato. I'm sorry, Plato to Socrates, whichever way that relationship went, right? Sorry, folks, it's late in the day. I've been working all week and it's a Friday afternoon. So whichever way the mentor-mentee relationship went, right, with those great philosophers, you have that at your fingertips. And you are no longer, and your child is no longer limited by the speed of the classroom or by the teacher's absence, right? No, like we can literally train children, right? We can, and I don't mean train as in like train for a workforce, just because kids play Minecraft doesn't mean they yearn for the mines. Like let's realize that. But no, and we can literally have your child, your own personalized tutor to take you through your entire life. And that tutor is the subject matter expert on every bit of knowledge within the universe that the humans have found. Sounds like a good deal. That's the future of education, right? And it's where, as society and as a community, then we can start to, build the spaces necessary, right, for the children to then, have that social interaction to build that community and strengthen it, right, which is one of the purposes of schools, right, which is why, certain individuals in my country are advocating for homeschools, right? Because when you're schooled at home, that becomes your tribe and everything else becomes the stranger, right? You never get incorporated into the greater whole as a society. So, by homeschooling, what you do is you essentially break apart society as you move through linear time, right? Because as you move through time and the homeschool kids homeschool their kids and who homeschool their kids, right, goes through and it breaks off. And all of a sudden you have a small band of individuals, right? So we're going to need to make sure that we mitigate that in the future as education becomes bespoke to the individual by creating society and group spaces, right, where children and teens and, those third spaces, as they're called, and to create that and to proliferate that throughout our communities to ensure that our communities survive, right? So that's a second order effect of an individualized bespoke education, right? Because if you use the classroom, if you lose the school environment, i.e. you lose where they learn the social ethics, you lose where they learn the social mores of the time, the social values, what the society functions like, how to interact with individuals that are different from you. That's everything you lose when you take a child out of a school, right? And you separate them from that. So we're going to have to be, as a society, as AI proliferates down to the individual tutor level, right? And that bespoke education, we're going to need to make sure that in the interim, our society doesn't fragment apart as you see it fragmenting apart in other areas that are now information silos as well. So, which, it's March 14th, 2025, when the future watching this is probably can reference a history book for something that happened on this date. You never know.
I always like a comment from the Big Bang Theory where they said, where I think it was a comment that Sheldon made, that if no one comes back from the future is still okay.
Yeah, right? Yes. As long as John Connor doesn't show up in the middle of a city, we're all right.
That would actually be super funny if that does happen.
Yeah.
But no, I agree definitely when it comes to education as well, because I've seen also the here in Europe as well. For example, you have Lexi AI, which recently came out, where you can have like a personalized AI tutor that can do anything. It can go from like role playing Socrates, so you can have a philosophical discussion with it. But it could also help you, for example, if you don't understand a subject, it will be like a personal mentor looking, okay, this is the answers I saw you doing wrong. Let's redo your schedule and focus on to get you better at, I guess, math, for example.
Yeah, no, and again, and that's just going to get better, right? And better and better and better. And so we have to make sure as a society that technology is democratized so that everyone can have access to it. May I give you a case in point as right now, like if we had something like that? So in Africa, there are approximately 1 billion people living below the poverty line, right? So horrible indictment on global society as a whole, that's the issue, but we are faced with our reality. We must deal with it. So if a genius is defined as someone with a 1 in a million level IQ, and there are 1 billion people below the poverty line, how many geniuses are currently sitting in Africa that are not applying their intelligence quotient to the problems of the day, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
You see what I mean? And so that's where we get to, right? By democratizing that level of education and giving every human child literally their own personal bespoke Socrates, that's what occurs. That's the innovation, right? Unlocking that human potential that is currently wasting away for, quite frankly, no real good reasons.
Simply by giving them access to the tools to get to AI would help them would help them a lot.
Absolutely, right? And then you just see how, if you have, thousands and thousands and thousands, because we're talking the globe over, genius level people with genius level access to genius level knowledge resources, you're going to have some innovation and you're going to have some progress because humans are just like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It will pretty much change everything. I'm very curious to see if this is indeed something that will be applied to by, for example, the UN or other facilities that can maybe arrange this.
Well, I mean, it honestly, it'd be for the good of all humanity, right? And at that point in time, the only discussion then becomes, like, all right, like, so what are the standards of education that we need to attain in an individual in order to incorporate into society, right? And should we mandate that? My view, yes, we absolutely should mandate. We mandate an education for everybody. And then what point do we stop pushing that on an individual level based on individual cognitive ability, right? Because at that point, then we can go into, say, a possible future more like a Morlock and Eloy out of the Time Machine, right? Where you have, your smart, governing class,
Yeah,
and
so
then,
exactly.
lower being rule class, right? And so it really depends. It has to be that equality of access. It has to be democratized, preferably federated information, so, just for a lot of purposes. So, for essentially control and really publicly owned LLMs, publicly owned AI instances, publicly available and out of corporate control and for, and government controlled AI essentially at, at the nation state and global level at that point, right? Because now we're talking about setting standards, right? And so you're talking about, okay, what is history, right? And if you want an example of that argument, type in Tiananmen Square into a Baidu website, like, doesn't happen, right? Because of that alternate history. And you see the same things happening in the United States of America with the current administration's efforts to erase DEI history, from, the essentially the fabric of, the United States of America's government. So, you have to mitigate against that. And I don't know how we can have that conversation, but it needs to happen. Does that make sense? Because the borders that currently separate us are nothing but lines on a map. And as information democratizes and individuals are empowered, a lot of those borders tend to come down, right? Because an educated population is an enlightened population,
But I
right? There's a
think you
reason
already
that,
see that with
yeah,
the rise of the internet, for example, that how easily borders
absolutely.
disappeared and how easily people got connected with each other through, for example, social media.
Well, and look at the conversation we're having.
Yeah,
This wouldn't be possible without the internet.
no, exactly. We would have not known of each other's existence unless
Exactly.
some
And
miracle.
look, yeah, and look at how great that's been for humanity. Look at how great that's been for our society. Now imagine that, 100, 1,000-fold. That's the future we could have if we decide to make it that way.
Very true. Is this also um, like looking to the future? Do you also see this like one of the emerging AI technologies that is going to be coming up in the next 5 to 10 years, or?
Oh, sure. I think the emergence we are going to begin to see, and so we've already beginning to see it. Like it's already happening in R&D labs and in a lot of like specialized like manufacturing and warehouse areas. Is really the emergence of AI and robotics into our daily lives, right? Because you're starting to really, especially with the processors now that you see out of NVIDIA, the neural processing units. I believe it was like a month and a half ago, NVIDIA did a trade show, Consumer Expo, and, they have now like $3,000, like computers that you can run a small language model or something like that on. I'm sorry, I don't remember the specifics for this conversation. But once we get into, and now we have world models, right, to
Mhm.
allow for autonomous robots to move throughout manufacturing and warehousing areas. And so you're really starting to see the sciences come together. Like I said, that essentially it's almost like a universal recursion, right, across technological domains to where the material science is now at the point where we can have the humanoid autonomous robots, the energy storage, right, with the battery that's now getting there, the computing power, the level of programming necessary, like all that is starting to converge. And, and again, because we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? So, and just it keeps getting better and better and better and better and better. So I really think over the next 5 years, it's going to be robotics. It's going to be, and not just the scary stuff on the battlefield, right? But you
Yeah.
already see it in Japan with like nursing, like robot nurses because we have an aging population because, I mean, why be tied down with kids when there's a whole life to live, because, right, the more educated you are, the more opportunities you see and, global population is an issue. And also I see AI popping up in that space as well to mitigate the effects of population decline. I think that's going to be huge and it's going to be one of the unhighlighted boons of artificial intelligence for humanity. So what I mean by that is that the reason that we can have the complex society that we do is because of resource availability, right? Not just the fact that we can feed us, but, we have the brain power, right? However, a lot of the tasks and processes in modern business life are the make work and administrative that is needed to make the corporate machines run, right? And that's like the sending emails, coordinating meetings, just like proofing documents, doing meeting notes, building PowerPoints, all that office administration, right? So what happens with population decline? You have less people to do that type of work. So you have that less work, But wait a minute, all that complex work supports the complexity of our society, right? It supports the manufacturing of automobiles, space exploration, medical breakthroughs. That's what all of that supports. So as our population declines, we're going to lose the people to do that, which means that the complexity of our society stands to decrease. But that's where artificial intelligence comes in, because as we lose the people to do those tasks, right? Because our people are having less children. That's where AI comes in. We automate those processes. We automate those systems. We let AI run those systems. And what humanity does is on the system complexity hierarchy, we move up a role, and we let AI take care of all the the menial stuff, right? And then that allows us as humanity to focus on the thinking parts, the creative parts, the stuff we were meant to do. Because I don't know about you, but I mean, back in the day, when people took a name, it was something like Farmer or Fisher or Taylor, because it's what they did and it's what they made and they were proud of it. Well, I don't see anyone taking the name of meeting organizer. You never meet a Sally Outlook email scheduler. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
no,
so,
exactly.
so there's that even within our social structures, there's the recognition that a lot of the things that we do on a daily basis are just BS work. And I can't wait for AI to just take all of that over. So that as we move forward and our population continues to decline, our society can still advance and increase in complexity.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I do it, for example, already with meetings. Like, instead of doing hiring a secretary to do back and forth emailing what's the best time, I just send people a link and I say this, now you can send me a link. Here you go. Tell me what time works for you too.
Exactly. And you automated that process. Well, current studies put the average time a worker gets back every single day as about 2 hours, right? When you fully incorporate AI as it stands right now, your data's good, your processes are on point, and you have a workforce that knows how to use it and incorporate AI into their work, you automate about 2 hours a day. Well, okay, let's go back to something else I was saying. So if you're working 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, well, and I can take AI as it stands now and automate 2 hours of that BS away. Why am I at work for 8? Right? Like, wait a minute, that's 6 hours. So why are we not working 5 days a week, 6 hours a day? Oops, wait a minute, why work 5 days a week? Why not just compress it to 4 8-hour days?
Exactly.
Right? Like, why are we doing, and that's a part of that transition, because that efficiency that is gained is right now being taken by the shareholders, by the oligarchs, and that value is then put into their pockets, right? So, and that 25%, those are the layoffs. Those are the people that they fire. That's the AI taking your job, right? But it's actually a person using AI that's taking your job. And that 25% of that time and efficiency that you gained is going into the shareholders' pockets. Well, if we as a society now have the conversation of, wait a minute, I don't need to work 40 hours a week to maintain my productivity. I just need to work 32 hours a week, and it's going to get less. And all that happens is the numbers on the Wall Street monitor thing don't go up, and my life gets better and society gets better, and I'm a better partner and I'm a better parent. Why in the heck aren't we doing it? Right? But that's a conversation for our society to have. And more of that time is going to be freed up, Floor, because again, the last time you used AI is the worst it will ever be.
Exactly. I mean, I already see the shift in Europe happening where people are switching to the 36-hour work week. So you do, for example, 4 days, 9 hours. And then on the fifth day, you're off to do your own thing, like more time with your family or maybe your private projects, instead of working the full 40 hours, 5 days, because you can do so much in 4 days.
Exactly. So, and again, why are we not all doing that? Like why? And it blows my mind that, but it's just how humanity is. And you can see it throughout history that, we see a situation that we could very readily make better by just simply agreeing that this is what we're going to do and it's going to be better for everybody, but we just don't do it because we're just creatures of habit. And there's a significant portion of the population that is just, quite frankly, afraid of change. I mean, look at Make America Great Again. The current administration, I mean, they're hearkening back to some halcyon age that never existed in reality, simply because of the fear of change or the fear that things have changed and you got passed by. I mean, and what happens? The destruction of the American empire,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
like, what was really better about, well, for me, like, as a woman, I say, for me, I don't want to go back because I didn't have any rights.
Absolutely not. Yeah. Well, but then I think, and that may segue the conversation, but But yeah, no, and I agree. Like there's nothing back there that's worth it. I didn't leave anything. I got all my luggage. I packed up, I left it. It's in the past is the past for a reason, and so any attempt to call back to that is just futile, short-sighted, and just ignorant of the way reality works. You know what I mean? But if it's one thing people can do, is lie to themselves with great efficiency.
I mean, we innovated everything for a reason. There's a reason why women, for
Right?
example, don't wear corsets because we kept fainting.
Exactly. Well, there's a reason why men don't wear high heels because men invented high heels.
Yeah, exactly. Though I still don't like
What?
them. I try, but
Yeah, I don't like them either. I mean, but it was a fashion statement in London and it kind of caught on and then the ladies got a hold of it because of all the horse poop in the streets. What are you going to do? You know?
no,
But
true.
yeah, so the society advances and sometimes people just don't advance with it and they get stuck. So,
No, that's totally true, but that's also why it's good for us kind of innovators to keep pushing
but
humanity as
yeah.
well to keep innovating because that's the only way for us to move forward also as a species.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, and that's what it's all about. Like, I mean, because when I look at it, when I look at AI and I talk about what could be and what our society could be and how, we could be a healthy, prosperous, innovative, advanced society. I mean, AI is the enabler to get us to a type 1 civil. Let's just be real. That's it. Like, hey, if we're going to ever hit a type 1 or even a type 2, who knows about a type 3? That'd be
Yeah,
amazing. Can't
I
even
would love
fathom
to be
that.
type 3, but I think
Oh man, if I could, and there were really 11 dimensions because we just don't know at this point. I would be swimming through brains. I would be going interdimension. Oh, yes, percent. I mean, well, but then again, that's just my
yeah.
personality,
I
right?
mean, right now I think we were like type 0.7, I think, on the scale, on the Richter
I
scale.
don't even know if we're well because I think what is it? It's a planetary, right? But I
Yeah,
mean, we haven't even hit that yet because I mean, we're still destroying it. We really like I mean, look at what's happening in the United States of America. All these environmental protection rules are just being discarded. Like, okay, so what? You want to go back to the days of pollution and acid rain? And it's just so like what type of future do you think you're leaving for those that come after you? And honestly, the answer to that is they don't care. They just don't care. And that's the reality. So, but again, that's that ever-present tension, right? Because you look at the history books and, we've always had to deal with this regressive element that quite frankly, when we were on the savannah before the Bantu expansion, they were the people that never came out of the cave,
no, true.
you
They
know?
waited until it
Big,
was
big,
truly,
scary
truly safe.
lightning strikes. Yeah, big, scary lightning out there. Yeah, but no, but again, as long as humanity exists, hopefully, get that ethical AI guidelines in line real quick. There'll always be that tension. Yeah, and there'll always be a need for it because you can't have too many like us, or we'll just go sailing off the edge of the world. You know what I mean?
No, but I think we're moving
Yeah.
slowly towards the age of enlightenment as well. Again, like I call it the second age of enlightenment.
I certainly hope so. I mean, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? And I think so. And if you want to talk about, another impact on society from artificial intelligence, like let's talk about that post-scarcity society, right? Let's talk about what is a world in which and this is a very scary prospect for a lot of people, you have the ability to actually live the type of life you want to live,
Hmm.
right? Because right now you can't. Right, like there's a social barrier, a monetary barrier, a geographic barrier. There are so many barriers, right, to advancement, especially if you're a minority group, marginalized, etc. So, what is life like, and where's the value when we don't have to work anymore? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I think the value, like where you're going to see a lot of that change, is in scarcity. And what do I mean by that? So humans place value on scarcity, right? Gold is scarce, so it's got to be valuable. Bitcoin is scarce, so it's valuable. Well, in a post-scarcity society, the thing that's going to be most valuable is one-on-one and human and that interpersonal communication and contact, right? That's going to be the value. So if I can, if I can download if on my phone, I can I can go into Minstrel or whoever, and I can say, hey, type up a 30-minute action movie featuring Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and he falls in love with the moon, or some crazy, like whatever,
Yeah,
like some crazy plot line. Well, the AI can generate that now.
yeah,
So
exactly.
what purpose do you have, Hollywood? Hey, showrunners, writers, what are you doing? Well, I'll tell you what you're doing. You're writing plays, right? Because that's the one thing technology can't mimic. It's human interaction, right? Just like how when everyone owned a horse and only the rich people owned cars, and now everyone owns a car and only the rich people own horses now, right? How there was that switch because of scarcity, and availability. And I think that's going to be the same for like human to human interaction, right? So movie theaters and, what's the point when Disney can just patent or trademark a prompt and release that? Why pay actors and studios and lot rent and all that other crap? Why bother, right?
If you
They
can
can
just
just
create
release the
your own
prompt.
Disney princess movie with
Exactly.
your
Yeah,
specific princess in mind.
exactly. And so Disney, and to a large extent, once we get significantly down the road here, can just take all the writers, actors, set designers, and just toss them off. And then whenever they want a new, they want a new series, right? Just have a prompt, just have like one of your creatives craft a prompt
Yeah, just have a prompt
and have it
engineer.
generate. Yeah, exactly. Which is that synergy of, the two disciplines. But if everyone can create a Hollywood blockbuster in their pocket, then who's writing the plays, and performing live bands and like in-person stand-up comedy and vaudeville performances? Like that's the type of stuff that's going to have value, because that's what you can't get at the drop of a hat. That's what you actually got to go do. Kind of like just how you see live sporting events are really the only draw right now, for linear television or anything like that. It's because that's the only place you can get it. And that's why it's valuable. And that's the value of it. Otherwise, linear cable TV and satellite TV would probably have gone the way of the dodo already,
I think a good example is actually do you know the movie Inside Out?
Yes. Inside Out #1 and #2.
Yeah,
I've seen
and
both.
in #2, they actually just put a lens on the camera, and that is, I think her name was Charlie? Like, her imagination. All they do is, like, make some fake kind of cartoon props, and the lens does the rest. I think that might be a good example.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What it could be like eventually. You just need to, like, make kind of the shape, but then the lens takes care of the rest.
That's the generative AI, right? The multimodal generative AI. Yes, that's exactly it. And so if you're a musician, hope you like playing in person.
Exactly, because that's the thing that people then pay, I guess, if there's still money at the time, pay for.
Yeah, because if I have an LLM trained on every single data point on the internet, which they are, then I can reference every song, rhyme scheme, et cetera, available. Now, there's still always going to be that element of creativity, but again, that element of creativity is what's valuable, and that's what's going to have to happen in person, right? And again, I just see the value of in things like handmade goods, highly valuable,
community building,
right? Because community building, yes, therapy, companionship, all those things are going to be incredibly valuable in a world where, again, we can press buttons and theoretically cure cancer, right? So, but I think it's going to be beautiful, because imagine where we could be as a society if we were living in a sustainable fashion on this beautiful blue marble, and everyone had the knowledge of the humanity at their fingertips and the time and creativity and resources to leverage it, right?
I think that would definitely be an interesting world also to be part of.
Yeah, I think it would be great.
When it comes to, do you have, for people who are actually starting their journey in AI and considering a career shift into the space? I mean, we both went from army into tech. So, what advice would you actually offer them based on your experience?
Sure. So one, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Okay. But that's a good thing, because if you're uncomfortable, that means you're learning, right? And learning, gaining new skills should feel like building muscles in the gym. It should feel like a workout, a mental workout, right? You should be exhausted. Your eyes should be crossed from reading all this stuff, and that's okay. Start where you are, do what you can, move at your own pace. Technology is advancing so fast that it's incredibly hard to keep up. Even when you know what's going on, there's always there's a new model, there's new tech, there's a new endpoint.
Exactly, there's also always something new.
Yes, and so it's just an explosion of innovation right now. So be very, very comfortable not knowing what people are talking about, right? Because there are so many different domains right now and they're expanding at such a rapid rate that it's so hard to be a subject matter expert in any one of them. In fact, I would definitely not call myself a SME, like just simply for the fact that I am at least aware of how blissfully ignorant I am about all the different specific domains, right, within this field of this data ecosystem that takes care of, like AI, machine learning, deep learning, all this. And so that's okay. I would start with some YouTube videos. Start with maybe a Coursera course, or just go onto Microsoft or Google and and look at the Microsoft courses on AI. Look at the Google course. They're free to take. Take them. The knowledge is there. I mean, what is it? In the age of information, ignorance is a choice, right? So you make the choice on what you're going to be ignorant about and what you're going to be knowledgeable about. Oh, and don't forget, incorporate AI into your life. Look, you can't say you know AI if you don't use AI. That's like saying, hey, I'm a driver, but I don't have a license.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? What do you do? You have get your hands on a keyboard, right? And don't be afraid to mess up, because I promise you, all I do is make mistakes. All I do is fail my way to success. And that's just what it is. That's just life. And so like any of the new skill, again, start where you are, do what you can, give yourself grace, and understand that it's the current outlay, the current field of artificial intelligence is advancing at a pace right now where even the experts can't even keep up with everything going on. So come on in, the water's fine. Let's ride the wave.
Thanks so much for sharing that with our listeners, because also we're out of time. So I want to thank you so much for talking about your journey into becoming an AI leader, and also a very interesting conversation about the future
I'm glad to have
in the next 10 years, or maybe next century even. So everyone listening, thanks so much for joining in. This was your host, Fleur Prince, together with Matthew, our AI strategist. And please listen, subscribe, and follow us on LinkedIn and on Spotify. We're also now on Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music. And tune in for our next episode next week. Looking forward to see you guys all again.
Bye, folks.